Everything, every minute of living and experience should be research data. At least when there is a real purpose, a goal, a greater goal in life, a greater goal of a philosophical or spiritual nature, a greater goal of tuning with the nature process, especially, or tuning with one's own entity, or to comprehend the details of the operating self within. These are the kind of purposes in life. Then every minute of living and experience or interactions with people, observations and perceptions rendered by other people can be considered research data, a data analyzing which or selecting the critical points of which can provide greater conclusions and recommendations for further research or further data or may lead to greater conclusions. Yeah. The mind is to be trained. That is the idea of. If somebody talks about a problem, that could be a way of perception, a way of looking at a certain event or a context or a situation or a state or an interaction as a problem with its own corresponding emotions and feelings. That's why a certain thing which is perceived as a problem is not at all considered a problem by somebody else. So there's a possibility that the mind has been trained to see certain events or experiences or feelings or thoughts as a problem. So therefore, the mind of the child, the mind of the developing person is to be trained, and instead of just allowing to be a passive victim of ongoing life events. So mind can be trained at a later point of time also, like analyzing the mindsets, analyzing the blocks to minds, mental blocks. So anyway, the point is that the mind also needs training. There is no operating principle, there is no sense in the world as of now that the mind is a thing that can be trained. Hands are trained to write, voices are trained to talk or to sing or various other skills and abilities. Similarly, the mind also needs training. One can do it by the help of a great guide or a guru or a mentor, or it can be trained by great reading great thoughts or ideas revealed in superior kind of books, especially philosophies. Whether the learning is in sciences or technologies or other subjects, medicine or various other subjects, the philosophies are a compulsory requirement for every mind. It will train the mind like Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is tuning with, getting tuned with the higher order possibilities of the self or attention through greater level of thoughts. When the mind goes through the greater thoughts, it will generate greater stimulations in the cerebral cortex, in the brain. Thereby a critical turning point may be reached. A critical turning point or a point of satori is possible. Anyway, the scope for training the mind is more or less limitless. There is the possibility of a new branch or a new domain of psychology, which I call creative psychology. The existing psychology There are various branches in psychology: experimental psychology, physiological psychology, then clinical psychology, developmental psychology, social psychology, and so on and so forth. But they are all about research and analysis of the ongoing data, available population, or the available responses and expressions and behaviors and actions and ways of relationships and languages of the people or the research subjects. So, for example, the psychology of learning or psychology of attention or psychology of thinking or psychology of mental illnesses are all based on observing and analyzing or researching the current expressions of the individual. Okay, it is wonderful. But the creative psychology is exclusively about the possible probable psychology of a human individual entity with the power or the competences of creativity or discovery or innovation or originality and potential inclination for enlightenment. So that used to be psychology. When all other subject domains, so chemistry, physics, engineering, technology subjects are all leading to the creation or the development of many of the existing things. Methods and tools and techniques of all kinds are being evolved by other domains of human activity. Psychology does not provide clues on how to evolve into a greater being. There is something called Indian psychology where most of the Upanishads and Vedantic perceptions about human beings are incorporated. Even that is just an analysis of the given. So what I mean by creative psychology is a domain of psychology learning which an individual will get clues and cues about evolving oneself for self-discovery, for becoming a greater person, for becoming what Abraham Maslow calls a fully functioning individual. That is the field of creative psychology, and people or the world of psychology has to itself has to evolve into that orbit. That is the next precept. Yeah, this is just a precept, a kind of a joke in between. What defines humanity? I mean, human beings. So, human beings, the topmost identity of human being is the clothes that they wear. Every human being wears a cloth, unlike all other creatures in the planet Earth. So, clothes define the identity of a human being, almost. Like the uniform of the military personnel, uniform of the police, uniform of several categories of jobs, or the clothes of a dancer, the clothes defined for all the unique dimensions of dance, the clothes for Bharatanatyam, the cloth of Kathakali, the cloth of Kathak, or the clothing of Odissi, or the cloth of swan dance, all these things. Rather, the clothes, or basically the clothes that differentiate the male and the female. Okay? So, humanity and human beings are in the predicament of always wearing a cloth. And increasingly, cloth defines the perceptions about a person. Well decently clothed or costly clothes or well-defined clothes or well-designed clothes and things like that. So basically what is a human being is almost nothing but clothes. Other than the face, even the face is covered by certain communities. So clothes define human being. Human beings are also basically creatures on planet Earth, but they have to wear clothes. So from the Bible, after eating the fruit of wisdom or whatever it is, first they felt the so-called shame and they covered their genitals. I think the origin of clothes is some kind of a intuitive confusion about the genital region. Even a mad person on the road would cover the genitals. Rarely a mad person walks on the road without covering the genitals. But if he or she does not, then the people around would beat and what do you call, attack that person or make that person at least cover the genitals. So seeing the genitals is a major issue, major conflict, major I don't know, issue, major harassment for human beings. That also, I suppose, originated in the mind of the male, the man, because the man is possibly ashamed by the penile erection. Okay, so the shame is for the man. A female is not that ashamed of her body, but the man is ashamed because of the unique shape of the penis on the body. So in order to cover the penis, they had to find out something. It started with maybe leaves and then all kinds of covering. So clothing is a problem basically of the man, primarily. Now it's a world of clothes. They don't understand that. Okay? Clothes are taken for granted. Everybody is in clothing all the time. All the time. And it is removed more or less completely only at the time of bathing or at the time of sexual activities. Very surprising. So clothes are removed only when there is sexuality. So wearing clothes is to cover one's sexual intentions also perhaps. Man cannot walk around in a world of females confidently and firmly if he is naked. What a tragedy, or what an interesting thing. So this is another idea. Most people suffer from anxiety or depression for reasons they do not know. In clinical psychology, it is a persistent state of that anxiety or depression is also called due to what they call free-floating anxiety. Just like that anxiety, or even a sense of apprehension, or depression, for no obvious reasons. I have often come across people who feel so depressed or worried or a sense of anxiety. I am searching for the reason. I don't know why I feel that anxiety. In fact, even I had occasions like that during some time back. But I would sit down and search and find out, and then I would realize that there was a small cause. Somebody harassing me or somebody making humiliating comment or seeing some bad event or reading some stupid newspaper reports. Yes, actually I had. That's why I stopped reading newspapers since the age of 20 or 22. Because the newspaper will give a complete sensational covering on murders and rapes and other kind of criminal activities. So reading a murder or a rape happened in some distant place, I used to feel very disturbed. And you are not supposed to take any action. So you should be simply witnessing that. So why should we be witnessing or reading about a criminal act when we don't have any capacity to act against it? Well, something like that was the logic of me at that time, during my young time, youth times. So the point is, here is individuals have to really reflect. As I said, everything is a research data. Existence is a research, at least for me. Every animal is doing research. I see the birds and the cats and the insects, they are all living in continuous research only. Then only they will be able to find out their food. So, that kind of research. So somebody should search into oneself during
It's
moments of this
16:30.
unreasonable anxiety or depression or worry. What could be the reason? I'm sure there is a reason. There could be a reason. There cannot be an effect without a cause. And also there is a question, when there is unreasonable or causeless, there is a feeling of anxiety without any apparent cause, there's a concern. Why there is no happiness without a cause? Why there is no joy? Why there is no sense of byour, peacefulness without a cause? And also, if somebody is found to be always happy, and the people around may be suspicious, they may even think that this guy has some problems. If somebody is always happy, obviously happy in his expressions or responses or behaviors or actions or ways of relating or in his language, then others around are very likely to suspect that this person has some psychological problem. That much people are all victims of anxiety once in a while. They can be happy only with some obvious reasons of public success or achievement or getting something which they desired or hoped for or worked for. Others, they are all mostly kind of dull or neutral. The tendency is to feel unhappy than to feel happy about things and events and situations and what are happening around. So, the next precept is, it's extremely complex to stop thinking. Yeah, a lot of people try to stop their thinking, especially worrisome thoughts, disturbing thoughts, frustrating thoughts, disappointing thoughts, okay, or anxiety-provoking thoughts. People really try to control that, to restrict that, to stop it, and often there is without any success. Then they resort to going out to meet people, to have friendships and social network activities, or go for window shopping, or they might take a prayer book and read it and things like that, or go to a temple or mosque or church and so on and so forth. So somebody feels confused about not able to stop thinking. Yeah, it's not easy because thinking meaning stream of consciousness. So thinking is a very confusing phenomenon. When you want to think about something, the thoughts are not coming to you. When you do not want to think about something, that thoughts alone appear in the mind. And at all other times there is a running stream of thoughts in the mind. Most people are unaware of it or maybe aware of it depending upon the contents of the thoughts. Such thoughts are called stream of consciousness in psychology. So it's rather very complex or very difficult to stop the stream of consciousness, in fact. And um, stopping that stream of consciousness, in fact, is a great achievement. Because that mind is always conditioned by that thoughts. That's even so-called great world-renowned philosopher René Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." So that had some other purpose. So thoughts have become the human identity or entities. So every religion is a thought, for example. Every political ideology is a thought. Every ideology is a thought. So it is imperative for the clerics and the rulers and perhaps the traders to campaign for the significance, singular significance of thoughts. So then only they can achieve certain other purposes. So I think, therefore I am. So when Buddha talks about right thinking, nobody talks about the right thinking. So instead of that, whatever is one's thought, that is the way the individual perceive or what so-called self-perception. And there's a lot to talk about that. So here the context is stopping thought. taking it to a higher level, when you stop your real flow of the stream of consciousness, then the chances are very high that your attention will definitely notice the core, the operating principle, the attendant spirit of the entity. Because there is always a field of attention operating. So entire world, entire entity is nothing but a field of attention. That's another theory I have developed. That we may discuss later. So, that attention is most of the time on the thoughts or the feelings or the emotions or whatever is in the sense-bound world. So if that kind of thoughts are stopped, then the attention will unite with the operating energy field of the entity. That's why the Supreme Rishi Patanjali said the essence of yoga or the core method of yoga is what? Stopping the thoughts. So even there is a statement in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That means yoga or unifying with whatever to be unified with is possible by nirodha, by rebuking or blocking or resolving or restricting the chitta vritti. Chitta meaning mind, vritti meaning activity. So yoga or union with that operating attendant spirit is possible by what you call by eliminating the flow of chitta vritti, by the stream of consciousness. So that much is possible with chitta vritti nirodha. Or chitta vritti is that wonderful also, maintaining the identity of the individual. At the same time, it is very, very disturbing. The individual feels defeated or distressed or depressed or worried, or even the self-image is formed by the ongoing thought process only. So individuals have to be trained in managing the thought process. That's a part of creative psychology anyway, or that's what I sometimes train some select people also. One can experience the results of thoughts, yes. So by thoughts you can feel good about you can feel happy about you can feel fulfilled, contented in life also, thinking that I have been able to achieve this much in my life. I am now holding such and such a role position in an institution or an organization or in the government or in society. Or I am loved by some people, I am famous, I am well known, I am accepted, and so on and so forth. These are also thoughts. So happiness, peace, thrill, etc. are just the opposite of disturbing thoughts. So another idea, majority of so-called thoughts carry linkages with one or more mental traps. So mental traps are a huge subject. Mental traps are certain mindsets that blocks or prevents or holds back or suppress the responses or behaviors or actions or a relationship or ways of languages of a person. There are about 9 mental traps. First is shortly called the fear or anxiety of ambiguous, uncertain, unexpected, unclear situations or ideas or events or people or experiences. Next one is called centricity and conformity. Centricity and conformity meaning the tendency to behave or act or live like the majority around or the significant people around. Conformity, the mindset or mental trap of conformity implies the tendency to abide by, agree with the majority opinion or the opinion of the powerful people or the significant people, and so on and so forth. Religion is a good example of centricity and conformity. At least conformity is a good example of religion, or political conformity, or other ideological conformity, social network conformity, and things like that. Nothing wrong about that, but it is about that unconscious or non-conscious tendency to agree with or abide by the majority opinion, or the opinion of the powerful people, or opinion of the significant people, or opinion of the ruling people, and so on and so forth. Whether the individual feels right or wrong or good or bad about it, he or she will conform to that, at least publicly. That is called the mental trap of conformity. So it's a mental trap, especially when an individual conforms to his or her own self-image also. I am not good, I am not confident, I have not been able to reach certain levels of goal, and so on and so forth. So thoughts carry linkages to mental traps, but experience is real gate of great freedom. So experience is a kind of, let us say, experience, what an individual feels without much thinking. So experience is mostly organic. So one feels an experience of happiness or blissfulness or peacefulness. Okay? So experience of hunger or experience of orgasm, experience of love, they are all not really thoughts. Okay, they are not precisely colored with or covered in a veil of thoughts. They are direct. So actually, instead of I think therefore I am, is to be rewritten, is to be deleted from the dictionary of humanity. The truth is I experience therefore I am. The truth of the entity is experience, whereas thoughts may vary from time to time. The thoughts at the age of 4 is not the thoughts at the age of 40, nor at the age of 80. Thoughts of two individuals, identical twins who differ from one another. Then how can thought be the central anchor of an individual's identity? Whereas experience of hunger, or experience of orgasm, or experience of love, or any experience for that matter, is very creature specific. It is very truthful. It's very correct. So that is the identity of the individual. The individual experiences the self. So that is the I. That is the I of the individual, not the thoughts. Okay, for great majority, thoughts are the basis of the scaffolding of the I. That is peripheral. That's also true. It is like a cloth define the human being. Thoughts are like a cloth. I think therefore I am is like I wear the uniform of the police, therefore I am. Therefore he is the police. Similarly, but experience of a police or a military guy or a ruler or a cleric or a trader, at experience level they are all creatures on planet Earth. That is the human being at the time of birth and at the time of love, or the most sought after time of orgasm, or most sought after time of eating or drinking water or sleeping. It is the entity, it is the creature. That is the truth. That's at the core. So core is not a concern for the great majority, because the world is controlled by the rulers and the clerics and the traders. So they do not want the truth to be operating. They will always continuously campaign for the cloths rather the thoughts. They would not campaign for the original entity. That's okay, that's the way of the world. Now, creativity, originality, self-discovery, enlightenment, etc. is possible only with the experiencing dimension, yes, of you, never with your thinking activity. Nobody can create a poem sitting there from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock in order to write a poem. An original poetry cannot happen. No story writer, no fiction writer, no music writer, no film director, no creation can happen out of thinking, out of so-called educated thinking, in which case a great majority of educated people, at least the so-called great academicians and university medal holders in various subjects would have created a number of things. No poem is written by a doctorate in any literature. Okay, so creation and discovery or originality and enlightenment and all this are possible only by the experiencing entity. I experience, therefore I am entity. Never with the thinking, never with any learning. Millions of people are reading the Gita or the Quran or the Bible or the great literature on spirituality and enlightenment and whatever. But they don't reach anywhere. Because that's all thoughts. What is Quran or Gita or Bible? They are all thoughts, languages. Okay? So the truth, experience has no language. The experience of love has no language. Experience of hunger has no language. Experience of sleep has no language. Experience of orgasm has no language. The birds and the plants and the leaves and the trees and the whatever, the entire universe, nothing talks, nothing has a language. The body, not even a single cell of the body has a language, the wordified language of the so-called human individual. Okay, the language one talks, whether Tamil or Hindi or English, they are not written anywhere in the body. They are not registered in the neuronal networks. They are all just in the memory in the organic memory of the talking entity. That's all. So if you want to be creative, if you want to be original, if you want to discover yourself, if you want to reach satori or enlightenment, you must follow your experience, not any books, not any languagified guidance of so-called gurus or mentors or whoever. Nobody can even get enlightened, even if sitting near, abiding by the directions of the very Buddha. Because he is talking a language. His original experience he has translated into some language and is delivered, and the disciples are hearing that language, and they cannot reverse engineer from that heard language to experience. Because they cannot know by a language what is referred to by the language, or what I call the word is not the thing. Buddha is verifying, okay, articulating or translating into language, translating into words and sentences of certain syntax what he did or what he experienced. But the disciples are just hearing that language, that syntax of the language. So that won't get automatically translated into a greater thing like self-discovery or enlightenment or satori. Okay. These are the things. You see, whatever I am talking by showing this post, showing these brief sentences are only the tips of the iceberg. I can, in general, I can talk about every one of these precepts or ideas at an average for at least 60-90 minutes. Some of them we can have discussions for an year. All right.